Well, hello everybody and welcome to Story Time. Today we're doing Hiccup, the Viking who was seasick by Cressida Cowell. Hiccup, the Viking who was seasick. Gather round, said the ancient crab, and hear the tale of Hiccup, the Viking who was seasick. Long ago, in a fierce and frosty land, there lived a small and lonely Viking, and his name was Hiccup. Vikings were enormous roaring burglars with bristling moustaches who sailed all over the world, took whatever they wanted. Hiccup was tiny, thoughtful, and polite. The other Viking children wouldn't let him join in their rough Viking games. Hiccup was frightened of spiders. He was frightened of thunder. He was frightened of sudden loud noises. Bang! But most of all, he was frightened of going to sea for the very first time next Tuesday. Hiccup wasn't sure if he was a Viking at all. Hiccup's father was Stoic the Vast. Whenever Stoic walked, the ground trembled, flowers wilted, and bunnies fainted. He hadn't brushed his beard in 30 years. Only girlies brush their beards, boomed Stoic the Vast. Girlies don't have beards, Hiccup pointed out, but no one was listening. When Hiccup told his father that he was frightened of going to sea, Stoic laughed his enormous Viking laugh until the salty tears ran down to his enormous hairy feet. You can't be frightened, little Hiccup. Vikings don't get frightened. And he sang the Viking song. Oh, I will blacken 1,000 eyes of 1,000 angry gales. Watch me knock the cockles off the biggest, bluest whales. I've given walrus nightmares who thought that they were strong. I marooned a huge typhoon on an island off Hong Kong. Oh, ancient brawny greenies, the never-ending sea. Mess with a squirming jellyfish, but do not mess with me. And he patted Hiccup on the head and went off to do 300 press-ups before breakfast. Thought Hiccup. It all sounds very dangerous. So Hiccup went to see the oldest Viking of all, old Wrinkly himself, whose barnacle beard fell down to his toes. Your saltiness, he whispered, for Hiccup had beautiful manners. Do Vikings ever get frightened? Little grandson, wheezed old Wrinkly, and his breath was like being kissed by a mackerel. I've been wondering about the answer to that question myself. The sea is full of trials and terrors, but it is also full of marvels and miracles. Go to sea, and you can tell me if Vikings ever get frightened. And so at 9:15 on a breezy Tuesday, Hiccup went to sea for the very first time. At 9:30, Hiccup was wishing he hadn't eaten those 2 smallish haddock for breakfast. At 9:45, he was feeling very peculiar indeed. At 10:30, he wished he was dead. I feel seasick, he said to his father. Vikings don't get seasick, said Stoic the Vast. Blah. But this one was all over Stoic's feet. Hiccup got sicker and sicker, and the storm got wilder and wilder. Stoic the Vast sang the Viking song at the storm, but the storm took no notice, and a great wave came up and soaked him. One mighty wave picked up that whole Viking ship as if it was a matchstick and threw it 50 miles to the south. And one mighty blast of the gale picked up that whole Viking ship as if it was a piece of seaweed and threw it 50 miles to the west. And a terrible back wind went shrieking all over the lonely ocean and turned that Viking ship upside down and inside out and went shivering down every Viking's spine. "We're lost," said Stoic the not-so-vast after all. And a funny thing happened. No, there we are. "We're lost," said Stoic the vast. And a funny thing happened. His face began to turn a greenish hue, and he thought of the 37 largest haddocks that he had had for breakfast, and his stomach began to heave. Then all the Vikings turned a pretty green color, and all their stomachs heaved, and with an almighty rush, they ran to the side. "Well, well," said Hiccup, "it appears that Vikings do get seasick," and immediately he started to feel better. "This direction," shouted Hiccup. There he is. "This direction," shouted Hiccup. But the Vikings were too busy being seasick to steer the boat. So Hiccup began to take charge, and a funny thing happened. The more he steered, the better he felt. As he headed for home, that stormy wind filled the sails, and the boat skimmed over the ocean at 1,000 miles an hour. Out of the depth of the sea came shoals of fish and leaping dolphins and strange whales with horns like unicorns. There were eels that lit up like light bulbs, and a nameless thing with enormous eyes that no one had ever seen before. All followed Hiccup as he steered that ship at tremendous speed towards home. "Nice breezy day," hummed Hiccup as he steered into the harbor. "So tell me," said old Wrinkly, and his old whelk eyes might have been twinkling, "do Vikings ever get frightened?" And look at poor old Stoic going, "Phew." "Sometimes they do," said Stoic the vast. "But then they get over it," said Hiccup the Viking, "and that's what makes them so brave." So Vikings sometimes get seasick. Mess with a squirming jellyfish, but do not mess with me. The end. Thank you for another story time.